With me now, Senior Legal Policy Analyst at the Heritage Foundation, Amy Swearer. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
So watching today's hearings, what were some of your big takeaways so far? Because I guess mansplaining is okay again, given how Senator Cory Booker went after Judge Amy Coney Barrett. But I guess last week when it was the vice presidential debate with Vice President Mike Pence going after Senator Kamala Harris, that was too much.
Well, I want to come back to Senator Booker here in a minute, but I think the biggest takeaway is that today we saw on display two fundamentally different understandings of the importance of the rule of law and of the role of the judiciary. So on the one hand, you had Republicans overwhelmingly and repeatedly reminding us that good judges like Judge Barrett don't rule based on their personal policy preferences or religious beliefs, but on the clear meaning of the text in front of them. On the other hand, you had Democrats who appear to have confused the judiciary with the legislature and who think that the judiciary is only independent if it will summarily rubber stamp any laws they pass, regardless of what the Constitution actually says. So you had several senators either explicitly or implicitly state that, for example, judges shouldn't strike down the Affordable Care Act because the majority of Americans want it. Even if we assume that's true, and the Democrats did a lot of fudging of numbers at this hearing, that's not how the Constitution works. Just like Jake Tapper suggested when he took Biden's chief of staff there to task on this. A majority likes this is a policy argument. It's not a legal argument. It's not a constitutional argument. And it was very, very clear at this hearing that Democrats have confused the two.
And it seems that they're grasping at straws because they can't exactly go after her past record, because going into today's hearings, we see that the American Bar Association, that a majority of them are saying that she is very well qualified for this position. So what does that mean given her past experience for the bench?
Well, I think Senator Ernst very eloquently pointed out that the Democrats are doing to Judge Barrett what is so often done to undermine women. To paraphrase Senator Ernst, when they can't go after your credentials, they go after you and they don't view you as the person and the judge that you are. They view you through the lens of what they need from you. They judge you based on what they need to judge you on and not necessarily on who you are. And we saw that overwhelmingly. I said we'd get back to Senator Booker, and here we are. Immediately, almost as if to prove Senator Ernst's point, Senator Booker, instead of talking about Judge Barrett at Judge Barrett's confirmation hearing, immediately spun this hearing into something about Donald Trump and coronavirus and domestic policy and the Affordable Care Act, none of which has anything to do with Judge Barrett's credentials or her judicial philosophy. And this really is the only play that I think Democrats have right now, is to turn this into something else other than the type of judge that Amy Coney Barrett is.
And we've even seen Senator Mazie Hirono on the Sunday shows saying that her religion would not be off limits. We've seen Senator Dianne Feinstein several years ago telling the judge, Amy Coney Barrett, that the dogma lives loudly in you. So knowing that the election is only about 22 days away from now, do you think that will play well with Americans who are watching these hearings and seeing a woman being attacked for her faith instead of for her credentials or whether or not she'd be good for this role?
No, and I think at the end of the day, Democrats seem to know that that is a bad line of attack to go after her based on her motherhood, on her race, or on her religious philosophy, because we've already seen some of the walking back from this. Even though if you've been on Twitter or other forms of social media, or if you've ever seen the video of Dianne Feinstein going after her for the dogma lives loudly within you just 3 years ago, we know that these attacks have been made on Amy Coney Barrett. And now you're seeing people trying to walk it back, saying, oh, we would never do that. We would never make this hearing about your faith. That's inappropriate, and trying to spin it in another way. So I think they know those are inappropriate attacks that don't go over very well because, again, we're dealing with a judge who is an originalist. The beauty of originalism is that an individual judge's personal philosophy, their personal beliefs, their personal preferences don't come into play. So I think what we're seeing is a lot of imposing of their own judicial philosophies onto Judge Barrett, and they're not actually paying attention to the type of judge she truly is.
And I think when we look around to what's happening right now in D.C., we are seeing some protests. We're seeing, of course, the women dressed as the handmaidens from The Handmaid's Tale. However, it's not the same level of vitriol and outrage that we saw just 2 years ago when it was Brett Kavanaugh, when it was his confirmation hearing. So I think, to your point, I think Democrats realized that this line of attack, it didn't really play so well for them back in 2018 when it was Kavanaugh, and so we're not seeing it nearly to the levels I thought it would be. It's not nearly the circus, this confirmation hearing, that I thought it would be. But thank you so much for joining us tonight, Amy, and breaking down today's hearings.
Thank you for having me.